Awesome. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Fifth Quarter Collective. Bo and I unintentionally
Yep.
matching. Got to rep
hmm
the Ole Miss Rebs. And,
Well,
we
I
have,
don't know what he was saying, but got to rep Ole Miss. Hotty toddy.
Me and Coleman didn't get the message apparently.
Yeah, it kind of buzzed out when you started, but I picked up the slack. Hotty toddy, gosh almighty, who the hell are we? Flip flam bim bam, Ole Miss by damn. There we go. Welcome to the third episode of the
yep.
podcast.
Where'd you guys go to
Jake, take
school?
it away.
I can't tell.
Yeah, as a reminder, we're all Ole Miss grads here, so a little biased. Now we got some things cooking and should have some more updates, but glad to have everybody back. And before we kick it off, guys, how's everyone doing? Everything going well?
The
Yeah,
week's
man.
going well.
Doing
Can't
good.
complain.
Good. We were ironing out some technical difficulties beforehand, but we called IT and we got it all sorted, so we're good to go.
Somehow the segue to a laptop, not saying whose, was in a freezer for quite some time, but
Yeah,
we figured it out and we're back. And the takes are hot, so they're
yeah,
hot.
we got it figured out. And where we really wanted to kick it off this week was one of the biggest stories that a lot of people have been following, but starting off with Caitlin Clark and some of the things that she's been facing since she's entered the WNBA. Really hard fouls, non-basketball plays, going back to even last week. One should have been an intentional foul and technical, and wasn't called at all. I think the league reviewed that. But just kind of wanted to talk through, guys, and get your take. Like, Caitlin Clark's welcome to the WNBA. What's going on?
I could take it away. I think it is basically the equivalent, and we'll look back, of how MJ was treated with the Pistons and how she's basically getting the bully treatment. She's obviously head and shoulders above everybody else. She's already a superstar, which easily brings out jealousy and envy. And with that, she is the face of the league day one since she's walked in. She's literally revolutionized women's basketball. So obviously, she has a huge target on her back, and they're probably going to just gun for her at every moment. And it's completely unfair to her, but she's a great basketball player. Shout out Caitlin Clark. Full support from the Fifth Quarter Collective on our end. But yeah, just keep hooping.
Yeah, I think we're pretty pro Caitlin here. I think this is kind of her like, I don't know. It's almost like a hazing moment, a rookie hazing moment. I think you know, a lot of the players seemingly like Bo said are kind of feeling jealous. And I don't know. It just seems the player that did this intentional foul apparently has been doing is kind of a repeat offender, if we will. She's kind of the Draymond Green to an extent. And then I guess it doesn't make it better that you see the clip of Angel Reese who was in the same draft class, got just as much pub, not as maybe not as much as Caitlin, but still is that rookie character, rookie player but she was basically encouraging the fighting or the intentional foul, the intentional foul. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of sad. It sucks, but like, hey, this is good. This will make her stronger. If anything, I love the WWE. So if we can get a WWE type matchup and rivalry in the WNBA, I'm all for it. So
I love that.
So I think really, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse here. But what I have to say is about sports media in general. I like Stephen A. Smith. I don't really watch First Take anymore, but I did watch First Take today of his feud with Monica McNutt. I don't know if you guys watched that. I tuned into First Take today for the first time in a long time. And the whole point of Stephen A's argument with Mrs. McNutt was the fact that she accused Stephen of not talking enough WNBA on First Take. Stephen A. Smith was upset, responded on his podcast last night, said, Monica, you'd be nothing without me. I gave you the platform. And how he is the number one talk show that talks WNBA basketball over others. And to his point, I think he may be correct. I don't remember the last time Jim Rome, within the last 15 years, talking WNBA, or Skip Bayless's show, whatever it's called now, or any of the other ESPN shows outside of this week. So my question to you guys is, Are we better WNBA reporters than Stephen A. Smith? Because we're talking this opening segment, episode 3 of this podcast. Imagine how many first take episodes have aired throughout the history of time. Our percentage of WNBA talk is a whole hell of a lot higher than first take. I want to get your guys' thoughts on that and being a revolutionary podcast.
Well, we are the trailblazers of the podcast. We like to endeavor into new routes that people are scared to venture off into. So being really a trailblazer of WNBA basketball is what we're all about. And the fact that we can bring you guys this live coverage and be basically the boots on the ground for this type of stuff is phenomenal. So I'm glad we're all trendsetters. I'm glad we're here to take the risk for the WNBA. And like Luke said, he's all here for it. We're all here for it. So I'm glad we're really just making the way for everybody.
I think one thing I'll add to this conversation and talking about how we're obviously, blazing the trail for the WNBA. I feel like, prior to this draft class, hasn't been much pub, and the WNBA and everybody in the WNBA have always kind of they've been trying to do all kinds of stuff to get that kind of pub. But now when they're the only thing that's talked about when there's NBA finals in this month of June, and they're like kind of, I don't know, it's just like what they're talking about now is kind of like diminishing it. It's like they're having like an identity crisis, if you will. I don't know. They're just, do they want the attention or do they not want the attention? It's kind of, if that's even, I know that's not a revolutionary idea. I'm sure many people have thought about that before, but I don't know. That's kind of what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
No, I would agree. I would agree with you because if you think about it, June's a big sports month. Especially in basketball, you have the NBA draft, you have the finals coming up. You just had the poor conference finals, I would say. But people are tuning in and talking about the WNBA. When was the last time someone's talked about the WNBA in peak NBA playoff season, or something that's not the dog days of summer and end of July, early August? I think it's also big for the league. No matter if they like it or not, it's big for their popularity, big for their growth, because you have people who don't normally talk about the WNBA talking about it on Twitter. So I think it's big for the league as well, regardless if you like it or not.
Yeah. I think it's huge. Like, you're looking at what Caitlin's done for the game, and I think that's what a lot of WNBA fans or college basketball fans were hoping, was that this draft class would transfer over into new viewership, more fans, bring them into the arenas. And if you look what she's done for the game, just go look at ticket sales, go look at all the numbers of even all the games she was playing at Iowa. Like, that stuff was not touched before she entered the league. And for Carter to go on and say, what does she do outside of, shoot 3-pointers? I think that's kind of a lazy comeback on her part. Angel Reese saying, she's basically not the only one that's putting the league on the map. I would also disagree there too, right? I don't think there'd be this much hype if it wasn't that. And of course, with all this too, you look at all of social media, you do have the racial component as well, where a lot of people are thinking this privileged white girl, of course, she's getting all of this attention and things like that. And I think it's not surprising looking at the media and how they always try to divide everybody into those groups like that. But I think Caitlin's game speaks for herself and really will rise above all of that. But I think, Bo, you hit it on the head kind of starting out. It seems like every game she's playing against the bad boy Pistons and just getting the piss beat out of her. And so hopefully she can hang in there, rise above it all, and stay healthy. I think worst case scenario is she keeps getting hammered on, and God forbid she gets injured or something like that. That'd be a worst case scenario for the league. Like, a lot of these girls would go from flying first class back to commercial or whatever they were doing beforehand. So the league needs Caitlin Clark. I don't think it's that odd to see a lot of these vets hating on her and really being tough on her. I think even in the NBA, any league, they're always hard on the rookies or the new hot shots coming out. But I don't think the WNBA has had a star like this ever. And so I think that's the new component. I think there's, like you were saying before, a lot of jealousy going around, and I'll be very interested to see how this plays out. Anything else there, guys? I think we hit on it all, right?
I think you're right. Yeah, it's like the hot girl at prom. Everybody else hates on her, but everybody else is a fan. All the guys are cheering for her. So I feel like that's kind of how it is. Superstar walks in, and everybody's just like appreciative of how it is. So
people want what they can't have. Yeah.
Yep.
So
100%. And next, guys, I know we were throwing around another basketball topic. You guys want to do the preview Mavs Celtics or want to dive into NIL news in Florida? What do you want to tackle first?
I think NIL news would kind of be fun to segue to
Yeah,
something different.
absolutely.
Coleman, you want to take it away, or
Or at
Absolutely.
least tee it
So,
up.
not to be the resident NIL college guy from last week's episode, but I'll take that role. The state of Florida actually passed that high schoolers can now make NIL money from high schools and middle schools to however young they want to go. So I think that's pretty groundbreaking. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. If that's good for the just sports in general, good for the high schoolers, good for the families. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I'll kick it off here. I think when it comes to NIL in high school, it's very interesting just seeing the money slowly bleed in. Obviously, we've seen it in college, but now even younger into high school. Um, I think it will only inflate a lot of the very big egos that already exist amongst these top stars, rightly so, right? If any of us were making any type of sponsorship or money based off our athletic performance in high school, I think we would be hard to not have that same mindset. But I also think it's going to get quite tricky, and I would assume that there's probably in the future going to be some issues with luring kids to other schools with, you know, under the table NIL deals. And I just wonder, you see coaches all the time get hit for that now in modern day high school where they're not allowed to recruit other kids into their system, but depending on the districts and the rules that they have set there. But that could get quite sticky and almost turn into a thing like we're seeing now in college, right? I mean, if you're not at a great school, maybe somebody's ahead of you and you're offered something else to go play at another school, why wouldn't you go jump ship? Of course, it's not as easy in high school as it is in college, but curious to see if we'll see a lot of player movement like we are in college there.
froze there for a second? Where are we? We all back?
I think so.
Okay, I'll dive in next. Yeah, for the NIL stuff though, I think it's going to be interesting to see some of these like ESPN top 100 recruits, like how much they'll be getting paid like freshman year of high school. Because by the time they're like 16 or 17, if they're already in the top 10, they're most likely going to be that high when they get to their senior year. And it'll also be interesting, at least on a football aspect, to see if people try to graduate early like they have been, like graduate on the midway through senior year to go enroll early into college, or if they're just going to be like, well, I can just enjoy my senior spring of high school, make money, and not have to go worry about college already. So I think that's just a weird like thing to try to think about, and how all these huge recruits, are they going to try to go to bigger schools in Texas? Like if you're from Idaho and you're some hot shot, are you going to try to transfer somewhere that has a bigger market? Like does that start to affect things? Because and just state by state, how at least in Florida, like if this gets adopted overall, it's just going to be interesting to see who can compete with who. And then are we just going to have like the certain states for sports and certain states for school, kind of like the Ivy League and the SEC? And is that going to trickle down into high school?
Maybe we're better off, guys, being high school boosters than we would be SEC, big time SEC boosters. I wonder what the limits would be in comparison for high school. So maybe that's our avenue there.
Should we try to get some guy an NIL deal for the fifth quarter collective? Some top
that
one
would be
recruit.
hilarious. That would be sweet. Get them
I
on
Yeah.
here weekly.
Do we just pick a school and that's our high school and we support it?
Yeah, but none of us could have gone to it. We got to pick like a random school and be like, this is who we're rocking with. This is our school in Florida, and we don't know. We're just gonna pick one.
I like that.
I like that.
My,
The
my
contract's
thing,
going to be as wild as they are in college. Probably to start off, I would assume no. But I mean, if it's going to be like the wild, wild west that it is now in college, I mean, I'm sure that'll translate to high school. Like, will that then affect the amount that then college is going to have to fork over for these kids now too? Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, but it's just going to, yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to find some deeper pockets,
One
some more deeper pockets for sure.
one thing I want to touch on is think of how some of these kids who have, let's just say, no financial literacy or really like budgeting skills, they just get handed a ton of money at like 16. They can't even drive yet. Like, what else are you going to spend money on? You know, they might show up to school with a Rolex on at 15 because they're like, I can't buy a car. So here I am with this.
That's
Like,
crazy.
you
And then you
know,
also have to be worried
the
about
college
NIL.
the college athletes, like when Johnny Manziel was around. I mean, Johnny obviously was his own personality, but think of that at 15. Like you're less mature, you have less life experience. So
But a lot of these schools now, especially in Division One, have NIL agents associated with each player to help them manage all of the financial literacy around it, how much money you're getting, what to invest, where to go, stuff like that. So a lot of the colleges have that, and still, even like smaller D1, and sometimes these big D1 recruits, it's like their uncle, it's like their aunt, it's someone in their family who really has no idea what they're doing. So a lot of these kids later on down the road will be getting screwed out of whether how much money they earn, how much their agent's going to take home. So high school, I think that's just going to be a whole nother level of you have to get some competent NIL agents down to the high school level and really figure these things out. But I think you're not going to have enough agents for all the players in the state of Florida. A lot of these kids are going to get screwed out of a lot of money or be in debt to their agent, to their uncle, who that person is. There's going to be a lot of issues there with the different things like taxes. Where's my money? How am I going to spend it? When do I get all of it? So it's a very interesting process. And I think this is revolutionary, but it's not really the first step that NIL in high school has taken. I want to say about a year ago, Missouri allowed their seniors to get paid NIL if they go to in-state schools. So I think this is like they're really the second iteration of that high school NIL process. So I'd be interested to see how this works on a full scale, not just with your senior athletes, but everyone from ninth through 10th grade or ninth all the way up to 12th grade. So I think that's one way to look at it. The second way is just let me ballpark it here. I think we're thinking outside the box, big brain thinking here. You have a lot of these prep schools in Florida, like your IMG, like your Montverde Academy, and I want to say another one in Pensacola. So you have a good amount of these big prep schools that recruit all over the country. Now these guys can actually are like boosters to where they can pay these players, these families to come play for these schools. My question to you guys is, does this affect high school athletics in general? Yeah, sure, you're still going to have your typical public schools, but now these big academies can now recruit and pluck kids and pay for everything, not just scholarships to these private academies and prep schools and charter schools, plug and play these kids from whether it's Miami, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Tampa, Sarasota, into these prep schools. And I think it kind of changes the space of high school athletics. Want to get your guys' thoughts on that and like the evolution of like these big prep schools in the state of Florida.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on. I mean, it's quite comparable to any other sports league, right? If they didn't have salary caps and all of that, what would we see, right? We'd see all the best players in the major markets, and the smaller cities just wouldn't be able to compete. So there needs to be some equalizer, almost like what we're seeing in college football. Again, I don't know what it'll take to get us there, but it's going to set like a new market, a player market, and really drive those players to the highest rewarding and most incentivized schools where they're offering cars or whatever it may be. But I do think it'll really shift. Well, then again, will it shift the dynamic? Maybe, but I think what you'll probably just see is more and more great players will just continue to be flooded into those schools that can actually afford it.
I think, I thought about this probably, I don't know if I even mentioned this in the last episode, but I think what the problem is these contracts are like, they're not public. So, like, they're used as like negotiation tactics. So, like, oh, I heard X is going to pay me this. So, can you meet me there, like in that vein? But if it's like, for public, if you're a public school, I mean, you're a public employee, I guess, at that point, right? So every public employee, I'm pretty sure, you can see what they're making. So why can't you see at that point what these kids are making as far as contracts? So it's not going to be like overinflated. Because I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be something with the contracts and them being visible would help. One, college, and then two, it's going to bleed into this high school deal. So I don't know.
And just lastly too, I think the big point was you get a lot of these young kids with a lot of new money, some of which they maybe have never seen before. How far out are we from having like another ESPN 30 for 30 like broke? I don't know if that was a decade ago, but just kind of looking at some of the financial mishaps and how college athletes or high school athletes might have been taken advantage of, since they're a bit more naive. And I do worry about that. I think, especially when you get families involved, right? Parents could actually be stealing from their own kids, and so that could be quite tragic. But I'm interested to see how it all plays out for sure.
Yeah, plus when you look at it from a legal standpoint, like you're really trying to give money to not even a full-grown adult, like they're 15, 16. So it's like you probably are going to have either go through the school, an agent, or like a family member, like we said, who could have like actually manage it or like be a part of it. Because if you're handing 20, $30,000 to some 15-year-old walking in to play left tackle at IMG, like, what do you think he's going to spend it on if he just has it drop into his account day one when he walks to class? Like, he might be down 5 grand by Friday just because he's like, oh, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But that'll be a big thing. But it's definitely there's going to be some people trying to take advantage of kids. So, the biggest thing would be to try to protect the athletes as much as possible because it could easily turn into, oh, if you just do this, I'll pay you more money if you just do this. And then they're just walking them down a rabbit hole where they graduate high school or not even graduate high school, get paid, and then maybe they don't make it in college, and that's that. Like they're just done.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I mean, if I had a lot of money, I mean, I'd be spending it on at that age underdog best ball drafts, whatever you could think of, right? I mean, just things that you think are important at that time, especially with all these gaming sites now. And real quick before we move on here, guys, just want to go around the horn. Let's say in another life we were really prime high school athletes. Who would you want your sponsor to be? Could be from a hometown, or what deal would you want to land in high school or college? Would love to just hear that real quick.
Royal Farms chicken. All you
Is
can
that
eat fried chicken.
local to Maryland?
Yeah, local Mid-Atlantic. All you can eat fried chicken, potato wedges. Yeah, I'll take that.
Dude, that's
Me and
good.
my
Yeah, I was
buddies,
gonna,
me and my buddies, anytime you go into Royal Farms, you get free chicken. Why? Because of me. So yeah,
I was gonna go Skyline Chili.
I personally think I would try to go with something local. That this will probably only be with Jake and everybody who's from Wisconsin, but going with Cops, their ice cream. I mean, I could win a game, go get a burger. Probably the best burger and ice cream in the state of Wisconsin. So I try to get sponsored by Cops. They're kind of close to our high school. Something local, because I don't think if I went and said Chick-fil-A, they'd be sponsoring a 15-year-old. So that's where I'm at.
And I'd definitely go Culver's. Yeah, Culver's. Growing up in the Midwest, get me a concrete mixer, get me some cheese curds. Yeah, we're chowing down after the football game on Friday nights for sure. So
That was a great
funny how we all went that route though. Next up, then, let's dive into the NBA. Huh? We got Mavs Celtics coming up. Hopefully, more entertaining of a series than the conference finals, right?
Yeah. What do you guys see as the biggest challenges or hurdles for each team? Like, where's the. Ooh,
before we get into that, I want everyone's predictions.
I like it.
I'll
Go
start.
around the horn here.
It's in 6.
I got Celtics in 7.
Jake,
I have Celtics in 5.
I got Celtics in 6. So Luke, I want to hear you. Why? Are
My
we
my
that
only
much of Luka
rationale is like,
believers?
what's up?
Are we believing in Luke and Kyrie that much?
Yeah, I think so. And if you look at the Eastern Conference and their path, look who they've played. They've played all teams where all the players, a lot of their star players for each team have been out. So why not? Why not, baby? Let's ride the Mavs train.
Luke, if this were around the horn, I'd bottom you. I'd bottom arrow you. But it's not, so I can't.
No. But that's what I believe. I believe Mavs in 6. Lock it in.
All right, Jake, let's hear your thoughts. Why Celtics?
Yeah, I think they're gonna be overpowering. Of course, though, I mean, Kyrie and Luca, they'll put on tremendous performances, but I know we were bashing Tatum a little bit. I believe in him and Brown. You look at Drew Holiday, you look at Derek White. I just think they have much deeper team. Love their whole makeup. I think the big piece though too will be Porzingis. Like where's he at after being unhealthy? But we'll see. I am just leaning Celtics though, for right now.
Bowen?
Okay, I'll go. All right. I think the X factor for this whole series is Drew Holiday and his defense. I think obviously you have Kyrie and Luca, who one of them he's going to guard and at least probably cut his production by 25%, maybe more. And you got Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who great duo, hard to stop. I think Jaylen Brown should have a very good series. And Tatum, I mean, who are you going to have guard Tatum the whole game if you want Luka to play well on offense? I mean, that's just my opinion. I think they're too deep on the depth chart too. So that's what I got, Celtics in 7. But it is going to be a good series. This is the first finals in years I'm actually excited to watch, because there's usually just kind of like a blowout, or it's like I'm just not that interested. So this is actually one I'm looking forward to.
I have Celtics in 6. Everyone knows Luka's going to go off for 32 minimum every single game. And you're going to have your Luka game where he goes for also 40 plus, and they're going to win. You're going to have your Kyrie game. I'm sorry. Something in my throat. You have your Kyrie game where he's definitely going to go off. However, I agree with you guys. I think Boston has way too much firepower. Kyrie, since he left Boston, is 0-12 in the Garden. So that is definitely a stat to look forward to, and see kind of how he returns to that crowd that really, doesn't like him at all. But it'll be interesting to see how Boston kind of spreads out Dallas, because Dallas definitely spread out Minnesota because they're so tall and they play so much in the paint. They're so deep there too as well. But with that Luka and Lively pick and roll, it's so easy to break that down. However, Boston can now do that with Dallas when you have wing shooters like Al Horford who can bring Lively out deep. You have PJ Washington and covering Kristaps Porzingis. I think it's just a big matchup down there. And yes, you have Drew Holiday guarding Doncic, but it's not just going to be that. It's going to be multiple different switches that they're going to have to play on him, give him multiple different looks and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be a very interesting series, but I think Boston just has too much firepower for Dallas. If Dallas gets, I don't want to say like a third star, but a third role player that isn't like Josh Green. Because Boston does. It has too much depth in the front court, the back court, as well as on the bench as well. So it should be a very fun series. It's a series I've been looking forward to, but I think it's going to be 4-2 though.
Yeah, I can't wait to prove you guys wrong. That's all I'm saying. I'll be running a victory lap on here when this thing, when the Mavs win, and yeah.
Who do you guys think wins Finals MVP?
Luka, of course. Duh.
Tatum. I think it's Tatum.
Yeah, I think it's stupid not to go with Tatum, but I do think no, it's going to be Tatum. I would love for it to be Drew Holiday, but it's going to be Tatum.
Yeah, it's got to be Tatum. And another thing as well, I forgot to include, they have playoff experience. They've been in the conference finals like each of the past 4 or 5 years. They've made a finals. They've played in big games like this. Naturally, yes, Kyrie has, but a lot of that Dallas team has not played in big games like this.
Mm-hmm.
Big finals, conference finals games. So this should be definitely a test for them as well.
Mavs in 6, baby.
Yeah.
Mavs in
Very
6.
true. Very true.
And when do those kick off? Thursday? Yeah.
Thursday night. Yep. Thursday night.
It's been a weird period that there's been so much downtime between the last games and this. I do hate that.
Completely agree.
And any other NBA? Real quick, Chandler Parsons making some news. It seems like. Who wanted to touch on that?
It was
I believe
me.
it was Luke. Luke wanted to touch
Let
base.
our resident Grizzly fan.
Yeah, resident Grizzly fan. I hate Chandler Parsons. He's a goofball. He obviously, he signed a contract and basically got like no minutes. He played no minutes. He signed a 4-year, $95 million contract and just like sat on the bench or didn't even show up to the arena. But anyway, he made some comments. I don't even know where it came from, but in like the last couple months, I guess he's on a podcast. Either I think it's maybe through FanDuel. But basically he was just saying that who was it? Kristaps Porzingis and Luka had some beef, and Luka, quickly chimed in and he said, "Yo, you have no idea. I've talked to you once maybe or twice, and there's no beef between both him, Luka, and Kristaps Porzingis." So I don't know. Chandler Parsons is just trying to make himself relevant again. There's no need to. You took all our money from the Grizzlies, so just go play golf or something like that. Just go sit and go sip on bourbon or something. I don't know. Go like do something other than talk. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Luke, Chandler Parsons or Dylan Brooks?
Dude, I'll take Dylan Brooks all day. Yeah, at least Dylan Brooks put minutes in, and he was actually. I mean, beside all the other antics and him being shooting like 0 for 30 some nights, like at least he there was some production from the defensive side of things.
Yeah.
So,
Chandler Parsons or Iguodala?
oh my gosh, you're just hitting the home run, aren't you? Probably Andre Iguodala. That really didn't affect us too much. I mean, I think we just bought out his contract, which wasn't $95 million and a roster spot. But yeah,
And
Chandler Parsons he's a bum.
and lastly, too, on the docket, and Bo, did you have something?
I did real quick, but it's pivoting towards NFL. So if you want to stay on
Oh,
NBA, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Just one last thing too with NBA. We'll know next week for sure, but it seems like it's all but solidified that JJ Redick is going to become the next Lakers head coach. I know he's doing a podcast with LeBron before. I like Redick. I think it can't hurt. I'm excited to see him going. I'll get all of your guys' takes on this, but my opinion, real quick, is we just saw Ryan Russillo on with JJ Redick on their podcast last week. Maybe Ryan gets a front office seat. I don't know. I think that would only help the league. That's what I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed. But want to get your guys' quick Lakers takes and JJ Redick.
As
Pretty
a
different.
huge
Go ahead, Bill.
as a huge Duke fan, JJ Redick was a star at the great University of Duke basketball. But I love the move because I think player coaches are usually better just because they understand, like, we're not going to run these guys like Calipari when he was in the NBA because all the NBA guys just want to be treated like, hey, look, I make a lot of money. I'm not diving on the ground for a loose ball unless I have to. And JJ is so good where I think he knows LeBron's going to be the face of that team. Like, whatever LeBron says goes. So I think he's just probably going to wait until either they pick Bronny or LeBron retires, one of the two, and then it really will be his team. But I see this as a great move for him. Like, he's just been on podcasts. Now he's back in the league. This could be like a good stepping stone for him to actually be a long-term head coach.
I
I
mean,
think
I don't
ESPN
know. I
has
feel like, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Luke.
Okay, well, I was just gonna say, I mean, just from hearing him on podcasts and on the ESPN broadcast and stuff, he obviously knows what he's talking about. Otherwise, he wouldn't, even be considered. So just like having that mind and him having that chemistry with LeBron, I know the jokes of Le GM are, always thrown around when picks get, thrown around and traded for, whatever star. So like having someone on LeBron's side, I know that was, denied that this was a strictly LeBron choice, but I don't know. I think it's a good hire for sure. And I'd like to see, if who takes the blame when they don't win. Will it be JJ Redick? Will it be Rob Pelinka? Will it be LeBron? No, probably not. But I don't know. Hopeful though. I'm hopeful.
I'm indifferent towards the hire. You could have hired any LeBron yes man, and it would have been the same. Yeah, he's a player's coach, but you could have brought in any other former player. Not all of them work out. Look at Chauncey Billups up in Portland. Not working out great for him. I just think I'm indifferent towards the hire. But one thing to look at, the last two ESPN top broadcasters have left for next coaching jobs. So if they bring back the great Mark Jackson or Jeff Van Gundy, which they won't, but I wish they would, they'll be back in the league. The league will be a
With
much better place with those two in it,
with all due respect.
with all due respect.
Love it. Love it. Bo, and NFL, what do you got?
All right. So here has been the debate of the week. We had a poll of the day, and I wanted to run it by you guys. So given, let's just say that these three players played for the same team and the same QB and are healthy, who do you take out of these three NFL players? CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, or Justin Jefferson, and why? This was a big topic of debate. I
Is
think
this
we're going
like
to
a
start it
fantasy
over with.
game, or are we sticking like? Are you if you choose like CeeDee Lamb, are you choosing the Cowboys basically? Does
Yeah,
that
they have the same QB, so let's just straight player, like you're just drafting them to insert team.
Jamar Chase? I like the Jamar Chase Joe Burrow duo rather than a CeeDee Lamb and a Dak duo. I don't know. I feel like definitely you got to have a guy that can throw the quarterback pretty good to you. You're going to get targets regardless. So how good those balls are going to, drop into your, bread basket, so to speak. I think that's key. I don't know. I don't think Justin Jefferson definitely is very deserving of his contract. I know this is kind of what sparked up this debate, I'm sure. But having J.J. McCarthy as his quarterback, we haven't seen him in the NFL, but we'll see. We'll see how he turns out. But that's my take. Jamar Chase.
I think I'm going Justin Jefferson. I think he's kind of almost like AJ Brown, where I feel like he can do it all, outside, inside. Jamar Chase is certainly great. It's just amazing, kind of looking at all those LSU wide receivers that they've produced these past few years. But yeah, Justin Jefferson, I like him out of all of them. Crazy too, well deserving of the $140 million contract. Really weird to see though. That's the same amount of money Jordan Poole's making in the NBA. So that goes to show you how sweet those NBA contracts are. But yeah, I'm going JJ.
I would agree with Jake. Justin Jefferson for sure.
That was my pick. I picked Justin Jefferson, but it was a sweep with the other people in the office of Jamar Chase, besides one other person who is also a Packers fan. So we also said we might have bias just because we have to play him twice.
I
But
feel like I didn't
my
get the
logic
text
was
right.
kind of what all of you.
Mavs fan over here. Now I'm going Jamar Chase, and everyone else is choosing the same other, option. Whatever. That's fine. I'll be.
Yeah, that was a
once
poll.
again,
That was a
victory
poll I
lap.
wanted to run by.
Well, yeah, and I mean he's proven himself in the hardest division in football. Yeah, I mean it's sold. So
And the
Is that
fight.
right, Coleman?
Just end it. I'm done.
Hey, Coleman, this got brought up. Just touch a base on football real quick. Sorry, not to get segue.
No.
But we were talking about you being a Ravens fan, and how do you feel this year about Lamar Jackson? Is this a make or break year for him now that he has all the pieces? And what do you do? Is he your long term guy, in your opinion, or do you think you're out on him?
No, I'm not out on him. Definitely not. I mean, he's won 2 MVPs. Was he
Mhm.
not the MVP of the league last year?
I think he was.
I think he was too. I
Mhm.
believe so.
He
It
was.
it is
Yeah.
June. I'm in basketball. Conditioning
You're
right
right.
now.
We'll circle back in August.
But
Circle
no,
back.
I think he would. Why wouldn't he be the quarterback in the future, barring a big injury? I mean, he had all the receivers he needed last year. I mean,
Mhm.
now he gets a better running back in Derrick Henry. He's got everything that he needs. We were a couple plays away
They,
from winning the AFC
they were trying to
Championship
argue
last year.
that just because
So
he's a
yeah, I
running
don't think it's a
quarterback, he
make or
won't
break
last.
here. I think he's there to stay. As long as the Ravens want him, as long as he wants to stay in Baltimore, Ravens would happily have him. So yeah,
Love it. Okay, I completely agree. They were arguing that since he's a running quarterback, he wasn't going to last in the NFL.
well, yeah,
And I said,
barring a big injury like RG3, yeah, I could definitely see something like that. But I think he's put on the good amount of weight. If he were to get hurt, I think he would have got hurt in his first couple of years
mhm.
when he kind of played like his college weight, was a little bit more like willing to get into those big hits in like week 4 games. Now I think he's kind of conserving his body a little bit more. This was the first year, I think, since his first year, he's not gotten hurt during the season. So I think he's kind of figuring out how to balance running and also passing, and then when to take that big hit or when to slide and get out of bounds.
Mhm.
and with that, guys, I think let's head on over to the UFC corner. Had some pretty interesting fights this weekend. Not sure who wants to kick it off.
Luke, would you like to want to do a deep dive?
Sure. I'll kind of start it off. I'll start it off by saying, I don't typically watch the UFC, but this one, caught my eye because I have in the past really liked Dustin Poirier, Dustin the Diamond Poirier, and with it being his last fight, kind of potential last fight, wanted to kind of get a look at that. But I started the night not watching the prelims so much, but watching. You're gonna have to help me out here with names because once again, don't watch the UFC so much. But who was it? There was you're gonna have to help me out. What is it?
Kevin
Breaking
Holland?
arm. It's before. It was before the Strickland fight.
Kevin
Kevin
Holland.
Holland. Yeah.
Kevin Holland.
Yep.
Mhm.
All right, so Kevin Holland, it was a pretty, I'd never seen this guy before. I don't know very much about him, but The fact that he, took some guy down and, breaking his arm, that was kind of a wild deal. I thought that was pretty cool. And we can touch on that, but I'll just kind of move to the next fight. The Strickland, it was Strickland, and what was his, I guess I should have knew the names, but it was Strickland and
Costa.
Paul Acosta, yeah. So I thought that fight for the most part was less exciting. All 5 rounds, I would say. It just seemed like it was like a game of chase. Like one guy was just kind of chasing the other around the ring, and there were occasional shots getting made towards the end. I know Strickland ended up winning that fight. Just took kind of throughout the round, and then he kind of laid it on at the end. And just kind of wish that one was a little bit more exciting, just because Strickland is such a, I don't know, not a I don't want to say polarizing, but he's really exciting. He is polarizing in what he says, but he's an exciting fighter from what I've seen in the past. But yeah, and then the main fight, the co-main, I guess they were calling it. It was Dustin Poirier and Islam Makhachev, I think was his last name. It was basically the next Khabib. And man, that was a good fight. It was a lot of, I'm obviously not a technical guy, but I guess they were calling it grappling, which is like more of a, I guess, a wrestling type of fight. So it was a lot of ground game, and seeing Dustin Poirier, even though he's 35, I think, him being able to get out of some of those submissions, I guess, or moves that Islam was doing. It was pretty impressive, but ultimately Islam did win that fight. He did have the upper hand on most of those rounds. So I don't know. That's just kind of what I saw from the average observer. I don't know what Bo saw or Jake. I know they saw the fight, so feel free.
I'll touch base on Islam. I thought first off it was really cool to see Khabib after the fight walk up and talk to Poirier. I thought that was just like a cool, like very respectful thing. And Islam obviously looks like he's going to be the new face or one of the faces of the UFC. I thought he dominated that whole fight just watching him. And the submission game, I don't know if it's just the Russians, but I mean, probably learning from Khabib, you could tell he was just like very prepared. And once he got him on the ground, I think Poirier, in my opinion, was gassed by like the 4th round when you were watching it. Because by the 5th round, I believe he got tapped with the, I don't know the name of the thing, but one of those. And it was interesting to see because by the end of the fight, he was just absolutely gassed, and you could tell. So I thought it was a very good fight. I like Islam, and definitely is going to be one of the faces of the league moving forward. But it'll be interesting to see how long he fights because Khabib obviously retired early in everybody's eyes after his father passed. And looking hindsight, I think it was probably one of the best moves he's done for his career because everybody's kind of left with like, he walked out like at the peak of his career, and everybody's left with the memory of Khabib being top of the mountain, champ, done, and then just walked out after all of that. And then that's the other thing that segues into McGregor. If he comes back, like we were saying, and gets pummeled, let's say, by Chandler, I think people will look at it as like, oh, remember when McGregor was such and such? It's kind of like Tiger now, how we touched on that in the last podcast. So that'll be interesting, but that was my fight or thoughts from the fight this past weekend.
Yeah, I think Holland, amazing, great submission. I'm blanking on the very long Eastern European name that he was fighting, but that guy, I don't know why you don't tap earlier. I know it's to do with toughness and all that within the UFC, but I'm tapping like as soon as I'm even getting 1% in that direction because it looked so painful. And so great fight there. Strickland, yeah, I think it was for a lot of people a little boring. He was just walking down Costa for most of the time, continuously moving forward. It was kind of prototypical Strickland wearing him out. You could see Costa fatigue quite quick. And overall, happy to see him win. I love his press conferences. He's, I'd say, up there with Trump in terms of being unpredictable, and you're not quite sure whatever is going to come out of his mouth. So fun guy to root for and follow. Good personality in the UFC. And then lastly, yeah, Islam, dominating performance. Good Lord, I felt bad for Poirier. You can see Poirier too, real early, or I think it was towards later rounds. He looked like he did something to his knee. I don't know if they reported on what he did, but it looked like he either popped or tore something when he was trying to defend the two-leg takedown. But great night of fights. I absolutely loved it. And on the Conor McGregor front, Bo, we might be in trouble because I don't know if you guys saw, but a lot of the advertising has been pulled down. They're not really doing a lot of marketing around it, and the press conference was canceled in Ireland.
Yep.
So I don't know what's happening, but it's not looking good.
I wonder, in all seriousness, if he didn't pass like a piss test, and they're not going to say it because he went from being completely jacked for that Roadhouse movie, now trying to get back to fighting weight. Obviously, he can cut the weight. Sure, he's done it before, but it's just like there's got to be something behind the scenes they don't want to say in public. Like he probably didn't pass a drug test, and they don't want it to like tarnish his reputation. And then like, oh, was he doing this before when he was at the peak?
Right.
So
I,
it'll be interesting to see if it happens. If it doesn't happen, that'll definitely be a bummer. I wonder who would walk in and try to fight Chandler on such a short notice.
right. Yeah, we'll see what happens. To your point though about going out on top with Khabib, I did want to get everybody's take. So we see that a lot in athletes where they will stay longer than they should, right? Extend their careers, and it kind of ends up leaving a sour taste in a lot of fans' minds. For me, one of the first guys that comes to mind was just Brett Favre and how that all occurred, right? Retiring, unretiring, leaving the Packers, eventually playing for the Vikings. Um,
Wait, time out. I think you missed a crucial part of his career where he sent unsolicited photos to a Jets staffer.
yep,
It happened.
yep.
It did
That's
happen.
typical Packer fan leaving that out.
Not what you want,
Oh, that's
right?
just uncalled for. That's just uncalled for. That's just uncalled for.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Brett Favre's end of his career, I think it's not as glorious as everybody would have hoped to, right? If he retires after his time's up with the Packers and passes the torch to Rodgers, I think he's looked at in a much better light. Then, of course, now you got him uh, getting some state funds and doing some volleyball things, but that's beside the point. But what I'm asking here, any other athletes come to mind in terms of bad endings or them sticking around a bit longer than they should? Who's up
Aaron
there on your
Rodgers
list?
better not be that. It better not be a curse with the Packers, but
Yep.
he's not retired. Give me a second to think.
This is a really good question. I haven't thought about this in a while. I think, just on another note with fighting, the person who did, Joe Rogan was talking about this, the most honest like retirement video was Mike Tyson, and how he just said like, I can still fight, but I don't have like the dog in me anymore to do it. And then later on when he interviewed, he said, I knew that for years, but I was still trying to hold on to something because I was still good at it. But he's like, in my heart, I knew like I didn't have that like fire or rage.
Yep.
So it's interesting because he still performed at such a high level, even though mentally he might not
Yeah.
have been like fully committed as he was back when like prime Mike was knocking people out with no socks on. I don't
I
know. This is a really good question. Not Mike Tyson because he's obviously a stud, but
This may be a hot take. Kobe, those last Laker years were just awful.
I
And then
love
you give
Kobe.
him
So
that, huh? You don't think so?
I'm just, I think, ooh, I got one. I got one. Pretty easy one. I think we're all overlooking is Tom Brady. He should have retired after that. He had the 2 years with Tampa, and then it came out he's going to retire, and they played one more year, right? I just think that last year didn't help him at all. Now he's
I know his family left.
family left. Yeah, he's
We
that
went
literally
up
went
off
off
the
a cliff. He
road.
already was considered the GOAT.
I, what about one guy that comes to mind too, and it's a little disappointing because we didn't get to see him in his prime. But I feel like Shaq towards the end a little bit. There were a few years there where his stats weren't very good, and I was like, man, this is tough. It's kind of like watching a train wreck. You're just seeing him not like a shell of what he used to be. So to me, that was another one that kind of stood out too. I feel like that maybe was a little drawn out.
I love the meme, or not even a meme, but it was, all of his jerseys as he became the journeyman that he was. It was basically a rainbow, and I always enjoyed seeing that. It's
Yeah.
funny. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Hmm.
Just out of curiosity, why not Kobe?
Why not Kobe?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Good
His
question.
last 3 years, almost four, were under 500. And they gave him that, and not to disgrace his name or anything like that, but I think he retired too late. because they gave him that one last send off, that whatever it was 60, 70 point game against the Jazz. But what else has he? What else did he do in those last 3 4 years?
Right.
He won his title in 2010, I believe, or 2009, but he retired, I want to say, in 2016.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
I think
Yeah.
Darren Waller's retiring. He should have retired a long time ago. Then he would have had made that terrible music video. If you guys saw that rolling around on the internet, that was something else. But
Luke, I
anyway,
love that, talking WNBA again with Kelsey Plum.
yeah, man, you got to
The
circle it
number
back,
one
baby.
podcast for
It's called
WNBA news.
circling it back.
Look at that callback. We're just a WNBA podcast at this point now.
We should try to get Caitlin Clark and try to get her on the pod. Open invite, Caitlin, if you ever see this. Open invite.
Yeah, we're big indie people. We're big indie people. We're big indie people.
That was a really good question, Jake, but I don't have a solid answer. Maybe one was Eddie Lacy. He was just basically a fat tank by the end of his career. He was just running about 2 yards a carry, and yeah, the fact that they put in his contract he had to lose weight in order to get paid money already should have been a red flag, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't want to know the odds of 2 mentions of Eddie Lacy within the first 3 podcasts, but they can't be that high.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that Packer bias. What
It's
about?
it's a curveball.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there.
Anything else you guys want to hit on?
I know Mark Titus said this on Mostly Sports. The family are the Edmonton Oilers America's team.
That blew up Twitter. Laughed. The first comment I saw was, "I'm suddenly an Edmonton Oilers fan." First comment I saw on that video.
Is
Go
this
ahead.
is this podcast pro Edmonton, or are we pro Florida?
I want to see Connor McDavid win one. I think he's, allegedly the best player in the NHL, and he still doesn't have a Stanley Cup, or I don't know if they do rings in the NHL, but if they do, get another ring,
Mhm.
like to see that happen. I don't really care too much about Florida Panthers. I don't think hockey exists in hot places. I understand that, but hockey in Florida doesn't just, resonate as much as hockey in Canada. I know it's Canada, not United States, but it's the NHL.
America's
For
team
God's
still.
sake. Yeah.
The Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Cowboys. No difference. Well, guys, I think with that, that's another
Great third podcast.
I'll say we decided on time. Just quick updates, guys. We decided on times. We'll be releasing every Wednesday. Wednesday mornings, we'll have episodes being released. Content throughout the week being dropped too. We'll tag our social media channels where you can follow us as well, and maybe get to know us a little bit outside of just the pod here. But for those of you still watching, appreciate it, and we'll be back with you next week. But in the meantime, I think that's a wrap.
Perfect. Great third pod.
Back.